Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead in collaboration with Grandpa's Farm with the 5 most important tools used on the homestead. And on Deep South Homestead there is a particular tool that we use every day, just like I've told you. All of our tools that we mention here we use every day. And they're all very important to us. But some of them we use more often than others. Even though we use all of them every day, there are some that are more important to us on a daily basis. Now this particular tool that I'm going to tell you about is one that I've used for probably 40 out of the 50 something, probably 45 out of the 50 something years I've lived. And it's probably my most favorite tool of all the tools that I own. It's always with me wherever I go. There's been a couple of times that it's almost been tried to be taken away from me, but you know, I managed to keep it, and I use it every day. It's a tool that is so versatile it can be used for just about anything that you're doing. And back in the day, when I was younger, the older women would always tell the younger women, don't ever marry a man that doesn't have this tool, because if you do, he can't take care of you. And I know that sounds a little bit funny, but that's what the older women used to tell the younger women down south here where I live. And as a result, most young guys had this tool with them all the time. Now I know that times have changed now, and that this tool is not as popular as it used to be. But there are those of us that still carry this tool. And it stays with me all the time. And that tool happens to be my pocket knife. I've carried a pocket knife ever since I was a young kid. My dad bought me one when I was extremely young. It was just a rite of passage for a father to buy his son a new knife when he was actually quite young. I got my first one somewhere around 8 years old, I think. And it's kind of funny, back then you didn't really worry about somebody cutting themselves, because kids were just taught about things. I mean, I think about at the age of 10 and 12 years old, me and the boys in the neighborhood, when we got home from school, we'd get our shotguns and we'd go in the woods and go hunting for squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that. And I dare say in the world we live in today that a parent would turn an 8 or 10-year-old boy loose with a gun, be afraid he'd shoot somebody. But the age in which I grew up in, we were taught at a very young age how to use things and how to be safe with them. We didn't have to go to courses and stuff like that. Our parents taught us this stuff. And my dad gave me my first knife, and he showed me all the do's and don'ts on it. He showed me how to sharpen it. He told me, he said, son, a dull knife will cut you faster than a sharp one will. And as years would go by, I learned that that's completely accurate. And I know a lot of people said, well, how in the world can that be possible? Well, a dull knife, you'll be pushing on it a lot harder to do what you're needing to do. And when it does go through something, like say for instance a piece of rubber hose or something like that, you need to cut a gas line, and you pop your knife open and you reach up there and you're trying to cut through that rubber hose. If that knife blade is dull and you pushing on it real hard, well, when that blade does go through that rubber, you're cut. Same way, I mean, it's just a rule of thumb that you just know is completely accurate. Now, this particular knife that I have here, I don't know if I can get it up there and show you. It has 2 blades in it. The second blade, this one here, it only serves one purpose in my knife. It only does one thing. And the way it's made, these knives, a lot of people don't know, this knife blade here is made for castrate. Let me put it up there where you can see it a little better. when you carry the pocket knife, this blade right here, because of the way it was made, it's rounded on the tip out here. You can castrate your animals with it. Now that's basically all that blade ever gets used for. Now, the other blade, I use it for multiple things. Whatever I'm cutting, I use that blade. And I'll tell you a few things about a pocket knife that my daddy shared with me when I was younger. He said, son, don't ever buy a knife that has a stainless steel blade in it, because you can't sharpen it. And if you do sharpen it, it won't hold an edge, because the edge will crumble off of it. He said, always buy a knife that has a blade in it that'll rust, and it's of a good carbon steel. And I've always done that. He said, always buy a knife that has brass fittings in the back side of it here. He said, because if you buy one that don't have brass in it, it'll be hard to open and shut. And I've always adhered to that. Now this knife that I carry here now, I'm not saying it's the best knife in the world. It's what I could afford at the time. When I had one that, put it this way, I had one that I'd had most of my life, and when my wife was sick in the hospital, I spent 2 weeks in the hospital with her right before she passed away. Never left the hospital that whole 2 weeks. And at some point, me sleeping in them old chairs in the hospital, mine fell out of my pocket during the night and fell down in that chair, and I lost it. And when I realized that it was gone after I got home, I went to the store to look at knives, and they had these case double X's here. I don't remember if this was a double X 75, but it was a case double X, I remember that. And I think it was at the time I bought this in 2011, it was $45 or $50, somewhere in that area, and that was about all at that time I wanted to spend on a pocket knife. And I've had it ever since then. It served its purpose real well. I've used it every day of my life. I use it for cutting okra, or grafting trees, or, you know, castrating an animal, or if I have to cut ropes or cut twine when I'm tying up tomatoes. I mean, you name it. Just cutting down corn. Believe it or not, I use this pocket knife here when I cut corn stalks, because a lot of times this knife is so sharp that I can just swing it and hit a corn stalk and just cut it right off. And I mean, I just use it for everything. I use it for making gaskets and motors, stuff like that. When I'm cutting around trying to cut little fine gaskets out, I use the blades on it for that. I sharpen it with a wet rock, and I finish it off on leather. That way I keep a real good edge on it that is razor sharp. I can shave with it if I need to. So a pocket knife is going to be my number 2 tool on the homestead to be used. Now, they've served me well over the years. I've actually killed a deer with a pocket knife. I've killed a deer with a Bowie knife. I've killed a deer with a hatchet. And of course, I've killed multiple deer with guns, but and bow and arrows. I've killed 73 deer with a bow and arrow. But by having this knife in my pocket all the time, it's a tool that's indispensable as far as I'm concerned. Now, you know, I have been in government buildings and they've asked me to leave and go put it back in the truck, and at airports they tried to take it from me from an airport one time, and I told them, I said, no, we're not, excuse me, my shoulder, I forget, you know, you're not taking my knife at the airport. I went back out and put it back in my truck and come back into where we had to be run through the detection system at. But you know, when I wake up in the morning, there's 2 things I do. One is put my wallet in my pocket. The other one is put my knife in my pocket. Actually, it's 3 things. I put my keys in my pocket. That's 3 things right there. That the first thing when my feet come out of that bed and I put my pants on, my knife, my wallet, and my keys go in my pocket. Because this right here, my friend, is tool number 2 for me at Deep South Homestead. Just remember to watch the other ones in the collaboration with Grandpa's Farm and see what their favorite tools on the homestead is, in what order they think that they're most important. And I guess that we'll stop right there, and I'll just say thank you from Deep South Homestead.